And to talk about the referendum result, with me in the studio, I have DW reporter Federica Baggio and Berlin-based Italian journalist Daniel Mosseri. Welcome to both of you. Let me start with you, Daniel. Now, tell me first about this no camp. What do they stand for? Why did they vote against these reforms?
Well, the no camp is pretty fragmented. Some of them want early elections. Some other just wanted Renzi to go away. And this is what makes the situation even more complicated.
When you say fragmented, what do you mean by that? Give me more details about the various groups involved.
Well, the Five-Star Movement and the Northern League want the president to dissolve the parliament, whereas Berlusconi, who still controls his Forza Italia party, does not want to go to poll because he still controls a good number of deputies and senators. So he'd rather... It's a little paradoxical, but he wanted Renzi gone. At the same time, now he wants his successors to stay in power because he's afraid of elections.
So you have different groups, all of them united in their desire to have Renzi out, but otherwise they have different agendas. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
OK, Federica, let me turn to you. What are you hearing from your friends and family back home in Italy? What got them so fired up about this referendum?
Well, I think besides the size of Renzi's loss, what was very surprising in this referendum was the turnout figures. Almost 70% of Italians voted, which is something remarkable for a country. So it was definitely a referendum that got people engaged. I've been observing that also among my friends and acquaintances back home. Very hot debates on social media. Also, people... a lot of people engaging and people that I would not have normally expected to take interest in politics. So I think people really saw this time in this referendum a chance to speak their mind and to make a difference.
And lots of young people turned out in this referendum?
Young people got definitely very involved, yes.
And youth unemployment is very high in Italy, is that
exactly,
right?
And that's one of the main issues and what we believe that actually led so many people to vote no. As much as many raise the issue of the Constitution, so we have to protect our Constitution, we have to protect our history, I think a lot of people voted no because they're angry. And young people are among those. Renzi has been in power now for a few years and still unemployment rates are very high.
So people are angry, as Federica says. Daniel, what is your view? How much of a role did the economy play in this referendum?
I agree with what Federica just said. People aged 30 or also in their 40s cannot find a job. Unemployment is too high, and it's hard for many to buy an apartment, let alone get married or have kids. And although many were not necessarily interested in the content of the referendum, they saw a no and they were happy to make an X on it, no, to express their discontentment.
And, you know, Renzi always argued that these reforms were actually about making Italy more politically stable. He said that the reforms, especially changes to the Senate, would make it less expensive for Italy to govern. It would make it more politically stable, avoid deadlocks and so on. But to what extent were people worried, Federica, let me put this to you, about too much power being concentrated in the hands of the Prime Minister as a result of these reforms?
I think there were some regions in which there was a concern in this sense, some regions that thought they would actually lose their push their power through this referendum, through this reform. But I think still the main push here was anger and distress.
Anger and distress. Now that the referendum, the people have spoken, Daniel, where do you see Italy going forward now?
Well, we're going to go through a period of short instability where now the situation is in the hands of the president, Mattarella, who is very unlikely to dissolve the chambers and call for early elections because, first, the budget law needs to be voted and approved by the Senate, and secondly, the electoral law needs to be changed. We now have two different electoral laws, one for the Chamber of the Deputies and one of the Senate, and in no way is the president going to allow elections in this situation. So a new government is likely to be...
The question remains when. But that is, of course, no one knows as yet. Daniel Mosseri, a journalist based in Berlin from Italy. And Federica, thank you, Baggio. Thank you very much both for sharing your thoughts with us here.
Thank you, Amrita.